So let's talk. Basil Smikle is here. He's a Democratic strategist and a former executive director of the New York State Democratic Party. Also, Jen Kerns is with me, a GOP commentator and former spokeswoman for the California Republican Party. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Okay, let's start with Russia, shall we? The president tweeted this morning. He said, Russia continues to say they had nothing to do with meddling in our election. Where is the DNC server, and why didn't shady James Comey and the now disgraced FBI agents take and closely examine it? Why isn't Hillary/Russia being looked at? So many questions, so much corruption. Jen, every intelligence agency in our nation thinks Russia interfered in the 2016 election, interfered in the 2016 election, and may interfere in the midterm. So why does the president keep denying that Russia interfered in our election process?
Well, I think from that tweet there, he's actually taking a pretty tough stance on Russia, as he has with some oil sanctions, as he has with sanctions involving some activities in the Ukraine that Russia was involved in. Look, I think this summit with Vladimir Putin is going to go very similarly to how the summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un went. I think you're going to see a lot of tough talk in the lead up to this meeting with Vladimir Putin, because President Trump knows that there is an impression among the American people that those two are cozy, and he's going to try, I think, between now and that meeting in Helsinki to prove that he's going to take a tough line and continue to take a tough line with Russia.
Basil, do you think that the president will talk tough? Will he look into Vladimir Putin's eyes and not see his soul, but see the devil?
You know, I got to tell you, Donald Trump may talk a tough game, but he really has done nothing to sort of stem the aggression, if you will, of Vladimir Putin in anything, both economic and political, that's happening here in America. With regard to that tweet, there was nothing in there that made me believe that he's taking a hard line on Russia. He's still going after Hillary and the DNC all these years later, but that's okay. I'm kind of used to that now. What I'm more focused on is whether or not, as you sort of alluded to, is he going to look Vladimir Putin in the eye and take the same kind of tough stance that he has, tried to do with North Korea, given the fact that he seems to have alienated so many of our European allies. I don't know what's going to become of it, but the truth is I don't think it stops Vladimir Putin from doing anything that he wants to do to interfere with any of our processes here.
Well, and I hate to fact check my friend Basil here, but it was President Trump. It was President Trump who last year, when he went to Poland, actually said on European soil that he was not going to allow Russia to hold these NATO countries hostage over oil, and he was going to open oil markets to those countries. That was a landmark speech he gave there in Poland. It was very well received, and what he said was in terms of the energy market equivalent to the Reagan tear down that wall speech. So he has gone directly at Russia on European soil, even amongst some of their allies, and he's been very tough on Putin. He's continued those sanctions.
But Jen, I don't think our European allies think that, because they're a little freaked out by this meeting.
Well, rightfully so. But look, as we saw with North Korea, President Trump has said he will take nothing off the table in terms of talking to leaders around the world, whether they are bad actors or not. He just as we saw in North Korea.
And that's the thing that I just want to pose to Basil: take nothing off the table. We heard that with North Korea too, and and it's great that he sat down and talked to Kim Jong-un, but we haven't yet seen anything tangible as far as denuclearization.
Right.
So I think that some are wondering, Basil, will the same thing happen with Russia? It's a buddy-buddy moment between the two men, but
well,
who knows if anything substantive will happen.
Right. And where we heard this too? President Obama, who said, we should meet with people even if we disagree, and he got pilloried for that. This president is doing the exact same thing, and he'll take victory laps for it. And he did with North Korea, and I'm sure he will in his meeting with Vladimir Putin. But I go back to my earlier point. I don't think that this president can do anything to stop Russia from doing what it wants to do to interfere either in our politics or in our economics. And I think it is accurate to say that the rest of the European community is concerned because the president has pulled out of all of these agreements. He's pulled out of all of these commitments, and yet we haven't really seen him. This is the opportunity where we can see him, if at all, do the same thing with Russia in taking them to task and holding them accountable. I don't know if we'll get to that.
Let's
we must give him a chance. We must give him a chance. I want to switch topics, if I could, for just a second, because I find this curious.
Yeah.
The Foxification of the Trump administration, Jen. Bill Shine, he was Sean Hannity's producer. Mr. Shine rose to the executive ranks at Fox, and he ignored sexual harassment complaints at the network. He was fired over that. Jen, is this the best choice for a communications job at the White House?
Well, it certainly does raise some eyebrows, but it does not surprise me because if you look at the 24/7 news cycle, which this own network pioneered, we are living in the TV age. We're living in the 24/7 cycle and then some, as you and your producers can probably attest to. So the choice of a TV executive makes a lot of sense here. I know some people are concerned about the choice of Shine in particular, but I can tell you, I was a TV producer over at that network during the 2016 election coverage, had Basel on as one of our guests, and it was very thought of in the building that Bill Shine was never involved in some of these things. I think there was only one case in which he wasn't named.
He wasn't directly involved or accused of sexual harassment, but he was the manager in charge and didn't take care of the problem and overlooked sexual harassment complaints. That's why he was fired.
In one case that I'm aware of, was that ever mentioned of Shine? I think he may have gotten the short end of the stick there. But look, I think overall, looking at Trump's choice, this is really no surprise here from Trump. And here's what I think is really going on. Donald Trump has been interested for a very long time in starting his own TV network called Trump TV. We saw a little bit of that towards the end of the political campaign when they started doing the Facebook Live chats. And to some extent, still seeing it now. But if you look at the long game, Donald Trump doesn't think 1 week to the next, as with the NFL players, kneeling 1 week to the next. He's thinking 5, 6, 7 years from now. That choice makes a lot of sense to me from that standpoint.
Okay, Basil, last word.
Well, there's a movie called The Running Man back in the 80s, and I remember there was a line they were trying to get the president on the phone, futuristic movie, and the president didn't have a chief of staff, he had an agent. And I think this is sort of where we are. The president is very focused on his image in the media and among people in the media. He embraces some and castigates others. So I am not surprised by this move, but it just still goes to show this is not administration bent on good policy. It's more about image control, narrative, and doubling down in the base.
Yeah. Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Basil Smikle, Jen Kerns, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.